everyone. I'm Victoria Heron and I'm hosting the webinar today. And I think we'll just wait a couple of seconds to see that everyone's coming in and has a chance to come in. I hope you're all well wherever you are. I welcome firstly Professor Ray Priest, who is International Director of Asia Pacific for the University of the West of England, or UWE as it is affectionately known. After 18 years as a secondary school and community college principal in the UK, he joined the University of the West of England in 2010. Shortly after joining UWE, he relocated to Thailand, where he now leads the university's international development in the Asia Pacific, and he was also appointed as the Managing Director of UWE International Educational Services. So welcome, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Hello to everyone.
Please meet Sunitha Qureshi, President of MSM Global. Sunitha has more than a decade of experience in international education, is based in India and leads MSM's extensive back-of-house operations, including MSM's human resources, financial management, IT, marketing and communications, and social media. Sunitha has led the development of the in-country office model for MSM and has successfully launched the representative offices in Asia and Africa for many North American and European higher education institutions. Hi, Sunitha, great to see you.
Hello, thank you, Victoria, and good morning, good evening. Welcome, everyone.
And finally, please meet Erez Van Ham. Erez is the Chief Growth Officer for MSM Canada and MSM Higher Ed Global. He leads the business development efforts across three verticals: the MSM in-country office model, MSM Unify, and MSM Higher Ed. Erez is a solutions-oriented senior leader with over 20 years experience. He has led teams in developing partnerships and markets, strategy and business operations, and financial planning and analysis. Hi, Erez, and welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Nice to be on this panel, and welcome to everyone who's just joined. I have to say thank you, first of all, for organizing this, Victoria, and giving me an excuse to actually put on a dress shirt. It's a pretty simple model, actually. What we do is we have an option for institutions to have support and dedicated resources in source markets around the world 365 days a year. So we provide your recruitment representatives, we provide your admissions staff, we provide audit and compliance services and marketing and promotions and brand building. And we go to high school visits on your behalf and to edu fairs all over the country. We are your representatives on the ground. And it's an innovative model because we do all this based on a performance-based model. And so there's no upfront fee, there's no recurring fee. And so it really de-risks the whole venture, because a lot of institutions, they want to have in-country representation. They know it's important. They know being present and being able to answer student and parent and agent questions and manage the market and being able to travel all over the country and meeting people is important. But in order to do that, you need some hefty budgets and you need to spend up front. With this model, we turn it on its head because you don't spend anything until we send you students, and you only pay us for an enrolled student.
Why would we actually look to India to a solution such as MSM? And I think actually Erez really said that at the beginning, because for us, we looked at the whole continent across South Asia and thought, how do we scale up our operation quickly? We operated with one manager. It sounds ridiculous now when you actually look back. One manager who we said could look after India, Nepal, they could look after Sri Lanka, they could look after Bhutan. At that time, they were doing Bangladesh as well. One person. And if you think of the scale of population and the need to scale up quickly, we had to look at a whole range of options, and I'll talk a bit about those later on. But MSM provided a very quick, a very realistic and a very low risk approach to actually developing our work across that part of Asia. And I want to share a bit later on as well how I feel that's also been quite individual. So yes, we are part of the MSM network, but we're still very much UE Bristol across those countries. And I'll talk a bit about that later on as well, because I think a lot of people actually get concerned about that. When I've talked to other colleagues in other universities, they've kind of said, well, yes, but we don't want to be MSM in a particular market. We're proud to work with MSM, but we want to be individuals. And so that's something I think we ought to reflect on a bit later on. But that was the real reason. It was we wanted to scale our operation up. We have big operations across Southeast Asia, across China, those parts of Asia Pacific. But India, it was that poor one person. And so that was the real reason for change.
Fantastic, thank you. So did you look at a number of different in-country office models?
We did. We first of all looked at doing what we do across the rest of Asia Pacific, and that is actually appointing our own staff, putting in staff in terms of across the continent. And we looked at what we could afford to do in that context, particularly because we had to think about office infrastructure, support and backup services for those staff. You can't just put people on the ground and not have that kind of support mechanism. So that was one option that we looked at. And of course, we looked at the timescales because we wanted to do that quite quickly. And we looked at the operational costs of doing that and the fact that we would be outlaying a tremendous amount of money up front. And we didn't know at that time how the market would respond. We then looked at models with what I would call the agent model, where we would actually work collaboratively with an agency and ask if they would house staff and provide us with dedicated staff. The problem with that model, as we felt, would be, of course, that already we would be saying to other agents that they were perhaps less important to us. We were going to give the message that they were not going to be, if you like, trusted in the same way. So that became an issue for us. And the third is we did look, and there are other companies who operate now in the space that MSM operate, and we obviously looked at their models too. And I think a deciding factor was two things. One, to save Sunitha's blushes and also Sanjay, who's not here today, but who leads MSM, was how honest was the response? What were we promised? And what I will say with MSM, we were never promised the earth. We were promised that certain things would be put in place, that they would be delivered, but there would be never a guarantee that everything would work. It was a very honest, fresh approach like that. Some colleagues offered us, they said, oh, don't worry, we'll have you 2,000 students next week. That kind of approach. And we were very reluctant to be looking at that. So trust was very, very important. And the second was track record. Now, at that time, we were coming from the UK, so MSM's track record was largely with Canadian institutions. But I would say to colleagues on the call today, do have a look at that track record because it's highly successful. This is not an organisation that hasn't delivered. It has delivered for Canadian institutions for a good period of time. And then, of course, we looked at were they developing elsewhere? And the MSM story has definitely been one of substantial growth. Now, you can't grow like that if people don't trust your product.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ray. Just to continue that conversation, can you share what the experience of the in-country office has been and what kind of outcomes you've had?
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about the things that have gone really well, and then let's try and be honest and say the things that have been challenges. I think we've overcome all the challenges between us, but I think it's fair to say to people that there are challenges. But the first thing to say is that MSM committed to us a good number of staff, and in fact that number of staff has grown. We now operate with 10 staff across that part of the region, and we're just talking India, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Bhutan. That's the part that is in our contract. So 10 people. And one of the things that's particularly impressive, and I think Sunitha mentioned this, is that that staff is very much divided between the sales team, the team that are out there, working with agents, working with the students. But actually, in my mind, very significant is that team behind the scenes who are going through applications, who are doing the checks, who are actually making sure that the customer, the student and their parents are well looked after. And just giving you an interesting statistic, so far, 52% for 2022, 52% of all applications received by our India office, so in other words, by that team in India, have never been forwarded to our admissions office, which in our case is based in Kuala Lumpur, because the team in India have said, no, they don't meet your requirements. They don't meet the quality standards that you have as a university. And I think that's an important message. Obviously, MSM, as they say, they base their product at the end of the day on the actual payment for results. So you would think that MSM would say, let's throw you hundreds and hundreds of students, because the more we throw at you, the better our income. That's not the case. As I've just mentioned, 52% of all applications, MSM have just ruled out themselves before they even come to us. And I think that's great. So we've got infrastructure in India, we've got team support, we've got team leadership, we've got office support. I'll give you an example. Just recently, we wanted lots of information, leaflets and resources actually posted around India and into Nepal. All of that managed, completely managed. When it comes to events, completely handled. I mean, when I look at the job that I do across other parts of the region in being involved in terms of planning events, I don't do any of that. It's all managed logistically, for us. And so they have tremendous backup support. And then also in terms of marketing, we've done many webinars like this for our agents, for students. We were really lucky just before COVID, we had our launch roadshow, which I remember really well. It was a great trip around India and into Nepal, and everything was organized. I mean, I just literally turned up from the flight, and from that moment on, I was catered for the whole trip, including very large audiences. We weren't turning up to venues to see 3 people. We visited agents, we had lots of opportunities to meet with people. So to be fair, I think with everything that we've had, what we were promised has been delivered. The challenges, I said I'd mention a couple of challenges. Obviously, the challenge was that UWE, long history in international education, so we have got our approaches to actually put across, and we're very keen that our colleagues present themselves as the UWE team. And we want the team in India and Sri Lanka and Nepal to be part of our Asia Pacific team of 70 staff. And, at first, I think I was worried, to be honest, more than anybody else, that would that actually happen? And I can say it has happened. It's been no problem. And where there has been a problem, to be honest, the help and the answer is a WhatsApp message away. So, Sunitha, we will meet if there's anything, no problem at all, or Chirag, we would have a quick meeting and we resolve the difficulty. And I think that's the other thing that's really important. MSM is not some faceless organization. It is just a call, just a video call, a WhatsApp message away, and you always get a response. I mean, I've never had a situation where there hasn't been a response. And if I say, oh, do you think we could look at this? It's always kind of looked at and we agree together. We're a partnership. So yes, it's a business model, but it genuinely is a partnership as well. And I think we're good friends as well now. So that's brilliant.
Sure, of course. So MSM unifies, as you said, an ecosystem. It's a SaaS-based model, so in the cloud, and it's a platform. And it has essentially 4 stakeholders that it services. The most important of which, and I hate to say it, Ray, because it's not the institution, but it's the students. but I think we'd all agree that they're the most important in this ecosystem that we all work in. So each constituent, each stakeholder, if you may, gets something else out of it. So for students, it's a platform where they can go in, discover programs, discover institutions, discover destinations, see new and exciting information and news stories, insights about destinations that they're considering, and do a search based on their interest, who they are, and what they're interested in. So who they are being predominantly things that would go towards an institution and program's requirement, right? Do they have this IELTS score? Do they have these grades and so forth? So who they are. And then another part, which is also really important, is what they're interested in, what they want to be when they grow up, so to speak. And so it matches these with their interests with programs and institutions that match their criteria. Educational agents are another big stakeholder and beneficiary of the MSM Unified platform. They log in, they work hand in hand with students right beside them, guiding them through the whole process. And they're able to offer, alongside with our teams, who are Ray, and I think it was kind of you to say, real people. Like, we have massive teams that are there to actually help. And so even though we have this platform, it's hybrid because we actually have people that people can talk to, even though there's this tool, which is a SaaS-based platform. So for the agents, they're with the student, they're guiding them, they're using the platform to provide them the student options about what programs and institutions, and providing them additional context about the destinations. And they're also helping them with the end-to-end application process, from the light bulb going off in the head of the student saying, I want to go travel, I want to go see the world, I want to go study somewhere else, to them being on campus. There's an end-to-end component to the platform and to MSM's overall services. And agents also use this to track real-time application status, and use it as a CRM as well. We have strategic partners, such as accommodation providers, insurance providers, financing, and so forth, that are also part of this ecosystem. So we have a marketplace for students. And I actually think there was a good example of us, I believe, and Ray, it may be, I think it was for you actually, where we helped a number of students with accommodations. They required some accommodations, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think it was before my time. I started in December.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. What we had was a huge accommodation issue for international students because of increased numbers. And MSM came in with one of their partners. And that's one of the great things, that MSM have got a range of strategic partners. So they linked us up with another company through MSM, and through that we were able to house a further 70 students. So that was really helpful. Very short-term, quick turnaround and solving that problem. Yeah.
Thanks. So we have that marketplace for students. And then the last and not least, our educational institutional partners. And this is an area where there's still a lot more development work happening, but there's some things that are currently live and some things that are going to be live very shortly. But really, this is a place where HEIs can log in and have full transparency. And what I mean by that is transparency into the funnel, and they'll have transparency from not just, typically the transparency you receive as an institution is when you get the application, that and below. But with this, with the Unified platform, you can actually get visibility above that line to inquiries. And if you have events, you can track event conversion to application, to enrollment, and so forth, and get analytics on certain events, and host marketing materials on the platform itself. And so you can actually have a place where you can keep your assets there, your marketing assets. You have a lot of analytics and data insights on the platform as well from an institutional perspective. And then from a transparency perspective, and this goes throughout the MSM ecosystem, but also the in-country office model, we have to stress we're not an agent. And so what we're doing is we're representing you. And so you have full visibility on which agents are sending you which applications. They're your agents. And so with the platform itself, you can have that visibility as well. So it's a CRM for you as well as an institution. And later on, we're going to be adding payment management systems onto it and a lot of other, very innovative admissions related services as well to the platform.
Fantastic, thank you. Sunitha, could you talk a little bit about the onboarding process? So an institution has said, yes, we would like to go ahead with an office, and we'd like to open an office in Nepal or in Sri Lanka. What does that look like for them? What are the next steps?
Absolutely. I just started on the mute again. This is the most exciting phase as the operations now begin. So the onboarding for MSM partner schools is like a 7-step process. And the first step is, of course, the contract signing, and then the HR starts with the recruitment of the dedicated teams. And then, of course, with an introduction to the committee team members from MSM and partner institutions, is also made to ensure to cover launch checklist details, setting of training and launch deals, and then, a launch checklist review, which also involves getting, step-by-step details from the partnership, from the partner institution. And then we move ahead, to the training calls, wherein, the team training sessions are made separately for marketing and admission process. So what we ideally do in the launch on the onboarding process is to understand, what are the admission criteria that, our team needs to know, both market, sales team and the admissions, so that, we are disseminating the right information. What are the marketing activities that, the partner school has been doing? And, what are the key factors that we can borrow and, take it ahead? And of course, like a meet and greet to understand, the admissions team and the entire international team with whom the MSM team would, be coordinating. And once, we have all these sorted, the next step is the MSM live launch webinar, of course, as it's the pandemic yet. But in normal times, we would actually have partner school visiting us, and we would actually do a face-to-face session where we probably would have anything from close to 60 to 100 educational agents, coming together, and where we would have a great presentation and hold a networking session. But as of now, yes, in the pandemic, we've been, having these launch sessions virtually. And of course, the final step is the regular weekly, bi-weekly calls between our contacts with the partner schools and the MSM dedicated teams. This is to ensure and review the marketing and sales targets, the activities, and any marketing ground information, that we would like to share with the team, and of course, take back information from their end as well.
Fantastic.
So it is pretty much like, a cycle of events which really happens, but it's like, coming together, meeting the new partner, and, ensuring that, we take things forward. But I would say this is the most exciting phase, because the team is, we'd always have a heads up from the business development team that, hey, we're going to have a new school coming up. So this is the time, okay, let's take things forward.
I know you love this part. Your smile just got a whole lot bigger. You love talking about the onboarding of new partners. And I'm presuming that the dedicated staff of the institution can also have an institutional email account. Is that something that you find is very common?
Yes.
So they're identified as the university?
Yes, and these IDs are strictly used only for agent, student, and institutional communication. These are not used for any of MSM's internal communications, and all team members also, are guarded by the MSM compliances and audits. So we ensure that data privacy is taken care of.
Fantastic, thank you. What if an institution already has an in-country office? So as you know, many Australian universities have an office or representatives or staff representatives in India. It's been a very traditional and long-standing market for Australian universities. Are there services those institutions can access that MSM can provide to support their existing in-country staff?
Oh, absolutely. For example, if the institution already has an in-country office, we would recommend that they tap our SaaS-enabled marketplace called MSM Unify, which is an innovative platform for extensive student outreach and sales. MSM offers support in printing and distribution of marketing materials, maybe even agent management, or even pre-screening of applications. So these are some services which would actually also help the in-country office team. And again, MSM offers a very transparent agent network, again full and comprehensive data analytics as well. So the partner school would exactly know that who their agents are, how are they getting their applications. So I think these could be some of the services that existing schools can use. Like they can get an extended network of agents who are already vetted. Applications can be pre-screened so that it's easier for the admissions team to go ahead with offer letters. And of course, for a larger outreach, welcome to use our SaaS-based marketplace called MSM Unify.
Okay, thank you. Erez, I think we've sort of reached the end of our questions. I'm just wondering if you'd be like to summarize what we've discussed about the model and also speak to anything else in regard to MSM broadly.
Sure. I think there's been a lot of interesting topics and ideas brought up. And one thing I think which is really important to stress is certainly institutions can do this on their own. But sometimes you got to look at economies of scope, and you got to figure out what is best to do on your own and what it's best to leverage a company that's an expert that has a track record in doing this. So we're a 10-year-old company that I think it's interesting, and Mary, maybe you don't even know this, but I think it's interesting to note. We're a 10-year-old company. We started by doing this very service, the in-country office. And we built on that. And we built on that through the good work we did and we've continued to do. And that's how we got more contracts and through word of mouth and then active marketing. We're a 10-year-old company that has no debt and no outside investment. Yet we've grown substantially and materially over the years, and we've tripled in headcount last year. And we have over 100 open job recs right now. And the reason I mention that is you can only do that if you're actually meeting partner expectations. Because if you're not, you're simply going to run out of money. You're going to need outside investment. You're going to need debt to grow. We're able to grow because we actually do a good job. Pure and simple. I mean, colloquially said, we do a good job. And when we talk about meeting objectives, and I think Ray, you mentioned this as well, we're not just talking about meeting enrollment numbers. We're talking about having an in-depth conversation with our partners and questioning what does success mean for you? We want to be fully aligned with your success. And that could mean a mix between UG and PG. It could mean diversity in programs. It could mean certain conversion rates. Certainly for Australia, it means handling GTE processes as you need us to, because each university does have their own process for us in certain regards to GTE. So we need to understand what you need done and how you do it, and we will do that. So all these factors come into play, and that's why we have an onboarding which is second to none, because we need to understand and really partner together with you. The other thing I'd say about the economies of scope comment that I made about doing it yourself is doing it yourself has inherent risk. And it has inherent risk. I used to head up, as Victoria said, I used to head up finance teams. And so I've kind of half my brain is thinking in finance terms all the time. And if I was a CFO for an institution, I'd question a couple of things. One, why would we spend money up front for unknown returns in the future when we can have a partner who does that job, does it well, does it professionally, meets enrollment targets, has a proven track record, but we only pay them when the student is on campus and paying their tuition? You know, it de-risks the whole model by doing it that way. And in fact, it typically, and this is the case in most institutions, it's typically using a different budget altogether. It's using your commission budget. And that may not be the same in all cases, but it's an important aspect to this, because in certain cases, it could even free up your existing budget for headcount, for travel, for marketing, to invest in other markets. There could be markets which you see the growth potential in 5 years, and it doesn't really make economic sense for you to invest in them now unless you have the capability through a freed up budget. It gives you a little bit more freedom. That's why institutions choose to work with MSM. So I think the important part is, you mentioned trust before. And you know, anyone that says trust me, that's a big red flag right away. So I'm not going to say trust me, but I will say, look at our track record, have conversations with us. We do believe that your brand is important. All our institutional partners, we respect the goodwill that they've developed over the years, and we respect, most importantly, the student. And if we keep that as the core of what we do, I think our kind of Northern Light, I'm not sure if that actually, I'm in Canada, by the way, so I'm not sure if that's appropriate for Australia, come to think of it, but your Southern Light, your Northern Light, it'll hold you true. So there you go. It'll hold you true. So we hold the student as the most important stakeholder, as I said before, and we make sure they're well serviced, and everything else flows from there.